It's now my pleasure to introduce Sherri Goodman. Ms. Goodman is a longtime leader in the field of environmental security, climate resilience, and peace, whose dedication to a more sustainable and peaceful world is matched only by her dedication to mentoring emerging leaders in the field. Sherri brings decades of experience from various high-level positions, including as the first Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Environmental Security with the U.S. Department of Defense. Her innovative approaches to incorporating environmental considerations into national security planning have set an important precedent for how we climate-proof peace and security. Sherri currently serves as Secretary General of the International Military Council on Climate and Security, a Senior Fellow with the Wilson Center, a Senior Strategist at the Center for Climate and Security, and on a number of influential boards, including the National Academy's Advisory Committee of the U.S. Global Change Research Program and the Secretary of State's International Security Advisory Board. She's one of those key figures who works tirelessly across sectors to strengthen our collective momentum towards a more peaceful, sustainable world. And somehow, in the midst of all of that, she wrote a book, which will come out this August, Threat Multiplier, Climate, Military Leadership, and the Fight for Global Security. So it's fitting this evening that Sherri will receive the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Environmental Peacebuilding Association. Sherri, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the stage and to have you here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lauren, and thank you to all of you. I know I stand between you and the reception, and it's been a long day, but now you're gonna have to listen to me anyway. I say that to my kids. Okay, but first I gotta start out by thanking, where is Carl? Carl, first of all, we all owe you a huge debt of gratitude for bringing this together. So let me give it. Carl and I have worked together for decades, and he is tireless in his efforts, and this is just a phenomenal organization you've built. So my hat's off to you, Carl. And Lauren, your dedication is also unmatched in this space. And so I really want to thank you for your leadership and your work here. And Erica, I know you're here somewhere also, and the leaders of the Environmental Peacebuilding Association. I know this is very much a labor of love. And I also have to give a special shout out to General Tom Middendorf, my partner here on the International Military Council on Climate Security. I deeply appreciate your wearing the title of Climate General. I think it's made a huge difference. And so I want to thank all of you for the honor. I think lifetime achievement, as I told my kids, it just means mom's getting old. So, okay, but I'm really struck by, in being here, by this gathering because it wouldn't have existed before it didn't exist a decade ago. It certainly didn't exist a few decades ago. When I started my career, there was no such association. And there were also not a lot of women in the room, there wasn't a lot of diversity, and there weren't a lot of young people. Okay, so a lot has changed, And while the connections may seem obvious today, they were not so obvious just a few years ago. So I really want to thank all of the founders of this to bring together both theory and practice. I think we need both. I thought it was very interesting this morning in the Mentimeter, between the academics and the practitioners and the policymakers. I feel like I have been all of those in my career, and I hope all of you who are getting started in your careers will think about the need to bring both together. We need practitioners, we need evidence-based research and analysis, and policymaker, and then academics also need to understand how institutions work or don't work, and how to reform them. So all of those things need to fit together. Okay, this afternoon, I'm going to focus on sort of three elements here. A brief history of my connection to this field and really its evolution from my perspective, how climate change serves as a threat multiplier, because that's my term, and how that became, how that came to integrate climate into security. And then moving from threat multiplier to really peace and opportunity multiplier, I want to end with you on solutions and a positive framing. So I got into this field, well, really because my parents are Holocaust refugees who escaped Germany in the late 1930s. And they were among the fortunate few who were able to get out. And growing up, I always felt, I was always taught that you had to give back and do something meaningful and make the world a better place. And so for me, growing up during the Cold War, there was an opportunity to bring peace into that process. And during the Cold War, advancing peace meant reducing the risks of nuclear weapons. And we just heard about chemical weapons, and I'm talking about that too. That was either through arms control, deterrence, or actual elimination, as we've heard from the ambassador at the OPCW. And I spent my first part of my career in this field, the weapons field, working as one of the first female professional staff members on the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee, overseeing research and development of nuclear weapons. And it was during that era that we actually shut down all the nuclear weapons plants and processing facilities in the US for environment, safety, and health lapses. And I say that my career went from weapons to waste. That experience launched the next phase of my career, where I became the Pentagon's first chief environmental officer with the wonky title of Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Environmental Security. So if you go back to the end of the Cold War, 1989, 1990, early 90s, and just after the first Earth Summit in Rio in 1992, the Rio Earth Summit, we were laser focused on how environment matters to security, both because military activities can be environmentally destructive, as we all know, and because environmental changes can affect global security. So this latter recognition, how environmental changes affect global security, led to the birth of the field of environmental security. We were cleaning up pollution from military activities and using that knowledge and experience to promote better environmental practices with militaries around the world. So two very brief examples. The ambassador just talked about getting rid of chemical weapons. At the time in the Pentagon in the 1990s, I was overseeing, in part, the destruction of the US chemical weapons stockpile. We had 8 chemical demilitarization sites. And I also brought stakeholders, citizen stakeholders, and our environmental regulators. I even took the EPA regulator out to Johnston Atoll in the Pacific so she could see how we were properly conforming with requirements to eliminate chemical weapons there. And I even lived within less than a mile in Washington, D.C. from a World War I chemical munitions site that was found beneath the field of American University at the time that I was serving in the Pentagon, and that became its own separate chemical demilitarization activity. But we also now have Rocky Mountain Arsenal, which was once an Army munitions production site. That was one of our early demilitarization activities. It is now the nation's largest urban wildlife refuge. So there are, that's going from the very negative to the very positive. So during the 1990s, and what may seem ancient history now, we were also working with militaries around the world, including with Russia at the end of the Cold War and many of the former Soviet states, to share environmental practices. I spoke in many Russian military academies. We had a program with Russia, Norway, and a number of other NATO countries in the US on Arctic military environmental cooperation, where we were working to help the Russians safely reduce the liquid waste streams from decommissioned Russian nuclear submarines that the Norwegians thought could contaminate fishing grounds. And we helped the Russians build a cask so they could safely offload those liquid waste streams instead of letting them leak out and potentially contaminate the areas. So this approach we adopted at the Department of Defense was not only about cleaning up past contaminants, but it's also about securing the peace, and we called it preventive defense. We were working to secure the peace and a healthy environment for future generations. Indeed, the motto of my office at the Pentagon, Environmental Security, was defending our future. And I think that sustainability element was very much embedded in that concept. Okay, let's go to climate change now and how it emerged as this concept of a threat multiplier. During and after my time at the Department of Defense, I worked with military leaders from all of our branches, and we asked the question, how is a changing climate going to affect global security? And we wanted to understand the national and global security implications of climate change. And in 2007, when climate change was primarily the purview of scientists and environmentalists, I organized the first group of generals and admirals to address the national security implications of climate change. We became the CNA, which stands for Center for Naval Analysis, where I was. When I left the Pentagon, I joined the Center for Naval Analysis, a research organization in the US. And here are some of the questions we examined. This dozen military leaders, myself, and a group of world-class analysts. What conditions are to the climate is climate likely to produce around the world that represent security risks? What are the ways these conditions will affect our security? And what actions should we take to address the security consequences of climate change? And we found, and this won't be rocket science to all of you in this field now, but then, back almost 20 years ago, the connection between water, food, and energy resources, which are central to survival, are being stressed by climate change. And that climate change is exacerbating the scarcity of these resources, amplifying competition, and playing a bigger and more complex role in decisions to move within or across borders. And that these factors would increase the risk of political and economic instability, especially in fragile regions, and can become a catalyst for conflict. We coined the phrase climate as a threat multiplier to convey how climate acts to amplify and accelerate other security risks we face, from terrorism to strategic competition to weapons of mass destruction. And many of you have gone beyond that in your scholarship today, and I continue to learn from you. This first CNA Military Advisory Board report, which we released just prior to the first UN Security Council session on climate and security, led to the reframing of climate change and to climate security becoming an emerging field of practice and study. Now, in the last several decades, we've also seen a mainstreaming of climate insecurity into security decision making. So how does this all tie into environmental peace building? Well, I mean, of course, among the tracks here, we have climate, we have water, we have other frames, but environmental peace building is defined as integrating natural resource management into conflict prevention, mitigation, resolution, recovery, to build resilience in communities affected by conflict. And natural resources are one of a country's most critical assets for peace building. So the concepts of environmental security, climate security, and environmental peace building are clearly related. Securing the peace is a necessary but not sufficient precondition for environmental peace building. That is, one cannot have peace without respective and mutual security. Thus, as an ultimate goal, individuals and nation states must have energy, water, and climate security to fully achieve peace and sustainable development. Second, from a historical and policy-making perspective, the environmental security construct of the 1990s and the environmental peace-building movement both emerged in parallel and have their roots in the concept of sustainable development and preventive defense, which we define then as having an important role in promoting peace, trust, and cooperation. So, sustainable development gained traction after the Earth Summit and refers to the the need to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. This term and body of work arose because of the need to focus on moving from destruction to sustainability, and it's embedded in climate and security. So there is also, I know, a related environmental justice component to these concepts. Because communities that are most harmed by environmental damages and consequences tend to be underserved, underrepresented, and underprivileged, and because climate change and environmental degradation compound poverty and local fragilities, we must all continue to work to include these populations and communities in identifying sustainable solutions to these problems and to our broader environmental peace-building efforts. Okay, so what about climate-proofing security? How can we move from this threat multiplying notion of climate worsening conflict to move towards climate as a peace multiplier? Well, I wanted to talk today about 4 ways we can move through this, address this, and share with you a few thoughts from my forthcoming book, Threat Multiplier, Climate, Military, and the Fight for Global Security, which tells the stories of General Middendorf and other military leaders around the world as they've seen climate on the front lines from the battlefield to the Pentagon. And with you today, I really want to talk about a couple of ways in which we can address this as an environmental peace-building community. First, in terms of education and awareness, there are 2 important points. We really need to shift the narrative first. This means we need to enhance awareness about the causes and outcomes of climate change, and to shift also from moving from risk, which we now understand that quite well, to action, to opportunities from peace. So from threat multipliers to peace multipliers. It's also important to couple advances in the physical sciences with social science research on social and human behavior. For example, it's not enough to predict rates of drought. We also need to understand human behavior, either in adapting more climate resilient crops or in changing land use. Today, I'd say we are still in the early chapters of advancing climate technologies to meet human needs. Some of us would call this actionable climate intelligence or improved seasonal to subseasonal forecasting. It's really the act of taking our advances in coupling air-sea interaction and better understanding, extending short-term weather forecasts to near-term climate models, and integrating that social science research. That's going to become increasingly important. The second set of actions we need to take, of course, is in mitigation, reducing our greenhouse gases to minimize the scale and extent of climate and prevent the worst impacts of climate change from occurring. To move more rapidly to a net zero world, we need to harness technology and innovation across the green transition and ensure that we're acting to decarbonize in every sector of society. And here I'm going to use defense as an example because I know it, and because last year the International Military Council on Climate Security released what I think is an important report on decarbonizing defense. And Katerina spoke a little bit about NATO's ambitious plans to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, and is also undertaking an energy audit to be able to better manage and plan its greenhouse gas emissions in the future. Militaries, as we heard in the Q&A today, cut across many sectors of society. What they do affects personnel, transportation, housing, infrastructure, and of course, our weapon systems, and they are in a good position to lead by example in adopting new energy and climate technology. Now, sometimes this is not just for the sake of being green and environmentally sound. It's sometimes and often about preserving the ability to conduct the mission. So the mission is as important as emissions, sometimes we say. And that's important because we want to have be able to advance in the interest of that sector, the sustainable transition. You don't want to be the last ones using fossil fuels. You need to maintain that comparative advantage. in a competitive world. Next, adaptation and resilience refers to the ways in which we will adjust to the climate impacts already baked into our planetary system. It has both human and infrastructure dimensions, from protecting our people and troops from hotter and colder temperatures to ensuring our cities and coastal areas are resilient to the next extreme weather event. And these considerations are all relevant to environmental peace building, as we also need to protect the biodiversity, our biodiversity and ecosystems. As it's often said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Now, applying this adage to environmental peace building means finding ways to make communities and societies more resilient to a range of risks, from environmental degradation to climate threat multipliers. And it's a matter either of paying now or paying more later. We're already paying those costs in the billion-dollar disasters we experience in our societies every year, and the heat wave that we have raging across parts of North America right now, and we've seen in other parts of the world as well. So that's critical, that we need to be able to avoid the unmanageable in terms of our climate risk. And finally, we need to reimagine our global cooperation. We need inclusive institutions to advance these environmental peace-building objectives. And there are a range of ways to do that. I want to focus just briefly on two. One is how we climatize our security institutions. I know some people like to talk about securitizing climate, but we're about climatizing security, and that's what the International Military Council on Climate and Security, with General Middendorf, and also Louise von Schaik and Laura Berkman at HCSS, and others of you in the room, has been a pioneer in laying the foundations for this work. We're a group of senior military leaders and security experts dedicated to sharing information and best practices to anticipate and address the security risks of a changing climate. We've played an important role in helping build advanced military cooperation on climate change and laying the foundations for centering environmental peace-building efforts in defense and security activities. Indeed, in our report in 2021, we stated that climate or environmental peace-building measures are often part of a more comprehensive effort to promote peace and stability. This report also highlighted the willingness of global militaries to support environmental peace-building efforts by civilian actors. And it's been at the forefront of supporting NATO's commitment to include climate change in its strategic planning activities, and has even brought a youth delegation to the last NATO public forum in Vilnius to showcase experiences and insights on climate security, environmental peace building, and the compound impacts of ecological change. Finally, I note we also need to continue to integrate gender and identity into environmental peace building. And the study I recently led for the US State Department's International Security Advisory Board is one of the first to incorporate gender and identity, climate and resource scarcity, health and infectious disease into an assessment of how diplomacy can better integrate these elements into international security, non-proliferation, and arms control with the Sustainable Development Goals. That was a mouthful. And that study was really like herding a lot of cats across a lot of different disciplines. And so I would say that was hard, but that's important work. And that leads into what I just want to leave you with in sort of my takeaways, that we need to, as a community of environmental peace builders, all of us, continue to engaging and learn from each other at these events and in other ones, this deep learning where you bring your passion and your creativity and your leadership. Second, we also need to be inclusive and sort of be silo-busting in our work, because we all tend to get, whether in academia or in government institutions, everybody's in their lane, there's only this much you can talk about, or this way you're going to advance. And so this field is really multidisciplinary, and we need to continue to bust out of those silos. And lastly, we all need to get out of our comfort zones a little bit and integrate innovative approaches into our practices that are environmentally friendly, climate resilient, and sustainable. I think strongly here. I am motivated by the work of EcoPeace Middle East, this group that has really brought together people across a very tough conflict zone to work on water and environmental peace building for a number of years. And I applaud that work. Jan, Yana, Nana, and all the eco-peacers here in the room, many of you, because I think it is an example of bringing together people across tough times, but to make a difference. And so I say that, and I see that happening, although we see a lot of tough times around the world, I see that increasingly also happening in many Arctic communities, coming together from indigenous groups, thinking about co-production of learning, working across environmental, security, transportation, maritime, land-based ecosystem areas, and that also is incredibly important. So, and finally, I look forward to sharing my book with you when it's published later this year. I hope you will find and reflected in it your versions of your own stories that each of you are now writing through your own lives with your insights for the future. So I'm impressed by the leadership and passion and dedication that I've seen in so many of you here already, and I look forward to working with you as we move from threat multiplier to a peace multiplier in which environmental peace building will continue to have an important role in our world. We all need to leave a legacy, and now I'm passing mine on to each of you. Thank you again for this honor.
Okay, so we're a little late in the program. So what we're gonna do is shift the connecting the community session. Did I name that right, Austin? Was that connecting the community session? I'm gonna shift it over to the gala because we don't want to try to hold you back from that. But I want to take a quick minute to introduce Austin because I'm very excited about his role with the Environmental Peace Building Association and what he's going to bring to us this evening. Austin Willisey is the Arts Fellow with the Environmental Peace Building Association. He's a community organizer who uses art and environmental activism for peace building. As a facilitator, Austin specializes in games and shared creativity that encourage people to share their full selves. Before we, so this is what we're going to stay tuned for at the gala, so you can all just, maybe let's do one more final applause. Thank you for staying with us this afternoon.